Hello, my friends. It's me again. I've got a new book, which is actually a very old book, but again, it's one of my favorites, and it's one of the books I have in my house. Um, it is entitled Lyle, Crocadile. I will show you the cover on the next page, but I wanted to start off by saying I hope you are doing well. I hope this brings you some joy. I hope you are being kind and loving to those who you are sharing a house with, and I miss you very much. So, this book, again, I will be sharing it with you in just a moment, is not for profit. It is for use within the Leshai community as an educational support. So I want to thank Bernard Waber, the author and illustrator of the book, as well as Houghton Mifflin Publishing Company, who provided us with the opportunity to use this book. So thank you very much, and we will continue now. Here's the cover of Lyle, Crocadile, and you can tell this is indeed about a crocodile. And this is not labeled for library that you can see, but on the spine of the book, if you were able to see it, get much closer, it's EWAB. So it would be in the Everyone section again. It's a picture book. It is, from the illustration on the cover, pretty easy to identify that this is going to be a fiction book, as most crocodiles do not present themselves in such a way. So something I did want to point out is that this is text rich, which means there's lots of words in this book. And when I was photographing the pictures of this book, I wasn't always able to get them all in. So reading along with this book is easy for me, but if you're trying to do that on your own, it will be very difficult. So I apologize for that. Oh, and there is the start of it. Little Lyle. I can tell also from this that Lyle is not your average crocodile. And there's our friend Houghton Mifflin and Bernard Waber. Okay, here we go. So just to point out, this book was originally published in 1965. So that was a very long time ago, almost 50 years ago, but I still think it's a lovely book. This is not an actual book that was published in 1965 in the sense that it was republished in, I believe, the 90s. And 1993, I think it says on there. So this is a newer copy of an older book. I'm going to go ahead and start. This is the house on East 88th Street. Mr. and Mrs. Prim and their son Joshua live in the house on East 88th Street. So does Lyle. Listen. Swish, swash, splash, swoosh. That's Lyle. Lyle is the crocodile. Now, I do interrupt books sometimes, so this is an editorial comment. This is something I'm just saying. I love the colors and I love the style of this book, and I am generally indifferent about crocodiles. I would give them lots of room, but this crocodile looks so comfortable and cozy and happy in that beautiful bathroom. I'm a bit jealous of this crocodile. So, Lyle is a crocodile. Lyle was very happy living with the Prim family. He was especially happy when he was being useful, like helping Joshua brush up on schoolwork. Again, this is such a lovely little home. But if Lyle was happy, he was making someone else unhappy. Perfectly miserable, in fact. That someone else was Loretta, Mr. Grump's cat. Mr. Grumps lived just 2 houses away from the Prims. Whenever his cat caught even the slightest glimpse of Lyle, she would fling herself into a nervous fit. Lyle wanted desperately to win Loretta over. He tried flashing his sweetest, most toothsome smile to show her how really friendly he was. But this only frightened the distrustful animal even more. Oh, and that is such a winning smile. In the end, Mr. Grumps, who was even more excitable than his cat, would burst from the house, shaking his angry fist at Lyle. "Something will have to be done about that crocodile," he shouted as Lyle fled to the safety of his own house. To take his mind off his troubles with Loretta and Mr. Grumps, Lyle filled his days playing with Joshua and his friends. He loved being it. He could skip double dutch 100 times without missing. It came as no particular surprise that Lyle could high jump. But Loretta, who was just out for an airing, was surprised. She was terribly surprised. Out for an airing. I'm guessing that means she took herself for a little walk. Loretta was so surprised and so shaken she fled to the nearest tree, and no amount of coaxing would bring her down. Not until Mr. Grumps arrived to rescue and comfort her would she consider coming down. "Something has to be done about that crocodile," stormed Mr. Grumps. Now Mr. Grumps was really furious. Now he knew that he would be snappy, irritable, and impossible to live with when he returned to his job in the big department store the following day. So just thinking about this, it seems Mr. Grumps is the good guy for protecting Loretta and Lyle is the bad guy. What do you think? For the next several days, Mrs. Prim thought it would be best to keep Lyle close at her side. Together, they fussed about the kitchen, preparing good things for the family to eat. When the weather permitted, they took lunch to the park. Lyle was always one for sharing. Oh, that looks like such a fun day. They even took trips downtown. There was much to see in the big city, and much to do. Mrs. Prim could spend hours just browsing around antique shops. Oh my goodness. I love the chandeliers, the lights hanging from the ceiling, and I love Lyle's hat. It looks very flattering on him. Let's see, that says, Twiddle Company Architects now renting. Lyle could spend hours watching building construction. They both loved to ice skate. It seems like Lyle is more of a friend than a pet. That's a very cute family. One day, Mrs. Prim and Lyle went shopping in a big department store. Unfortunately for everyone, it turned out to be the very same store in which Mr. Grumps held an important position. Oh no. And unfortunately, they were to hear from Mr. Grumps all too soon, for it was his voice that suddenly broke over the loudspeaker to announce a sale in the pajama department. "Today all my pajamas are on sale. Come quick before they run out," I imagine he said. Immediately, it was as if everyone in the store was in a desperate need of pajamas. Separated from Mrs. Prim, Lyle was swept along with the crowd. As soon as they neared the pajama department, Lyle thought he heard a familiar voice. "Lyle! Lyle!" the voice called out. Lyle recognized that voice all right. And the face as well. The voice and the face belonged to Hector P. Valenti, star of stage and screen. But what was Signor Valenti up to now? Well, for a moment it seemed he was busy selling pajamas. Lyle remembered unhappily his days of traveling and performing with Signor Valenti. But in spite of everything, the two were delighted to see each other once more. Now, this is when I remembered that, there was another Lyle Crocodile book. So I'll see if I can find that one, and maybe you can read it after this. But I gotta say, I am definitely going to go to that store to get some pajamas. Can you guess which ones I like? Take a look and see which pajamas you think would look good on Mr. McNew. That's right, the green ones with the really fancy little clips there. I'm digging those jammies. I could wear those for a week. In another part of the store, Mrs. Prim searched frantically for Lyle. "Excuse me," she said to the lady at the information booth. "Have you seen a crocodile going past? He was wearing a red scarf." "No," answered the lady. "I have no information about a crocodile wearing a red scarf." And on her little booth it says that she speaks French and she speaks Spanish, and I believe even under that we can't see, it says she speaks Italian. "Excuse me," Mrs. Prim said to the sporting goods salesman. "Have you by any chance come across a crocodile? His name is Lyle." "Sorry, ma'am," answered the salesman. "I have not come across any crocodiles named Lyle today." Mrs. Prim grew more and more upset. "Excuse me," she said to a man wearing a white carnation. "I have lost my crocodile, and I don't know what to do." Whatever the man answered, Mrs. Prim never heard, for his voice was lost in a chorus of other voices shouting, "More! More!" Oh, and I didn't know if you noticed, but I am wearing my crocodile hunting hat. So I would have been much help at that department store because I have the hat for finding crocodiles, just in case you're wondering why I'm wearing this. Those voices belonged to a huge crowd of shoppers surrounding Hector P. Valenti and Lyle. Because they had an audience, and because Signor Valenti could not resist showing off, he had persuaded Lyle to join him in a free performance of their old stage act. More, more! The surprised but delighted shoppers called out, forgetting all about wanting or even needing pajamas. Again, I have to say, this stage act is something from the previous book that I'm going to see if I can get for us to enjoy. Mrs. Prim caught up with them just in time to hear still another voice, charged with fury, shout, "What's going on here?" This was Mr. Grumps, and when Mr. Grumps saw what was really going on, his face turned red, blue, and purple with rage. "Madam," he gasped, "we do not permit crocodiles in this store, you know. Remove him at once." "And you, sir," he said, pointing a dagger-like finger at Signor Valenti, "you, sir, are dismissed." "Something will have to be done about that crocodile." Those warning words of Mr. Grumps still rang in their ears as they said goodbye to Signor Valenti outside of the store. Big drama day. But check out Signor Valenti's hat. Fashion forward. That guy, he knows his pajamas and he knows his headwear. Mr. Grumps at last made good on his threat to do something about that crocodile. That means he finally followed through. The next day he appeared at the Prim's door with papers authorizing Lyle to be committed to the zoo. "The zoo?" Mrs. Prim exclaimed miserably. "Whatever will Lyle be doing in the zoo?" "He'll be doing whatever it is normal crocodiles are supposed to be doing," snapped Mr. Grumps, who wasn't being at all nice about it. The Prims examined the papers. They appeared to be in order. There was little they could do, at least for the moment, to prevent Mr. Grumps from putting Lyle in the zoo. Lyle's first night was difficult indeed. Things are getting tense. I wonder what's going to happen. Not wanting to seem unsociable, he decided to join the other crocodiles, who were cozily piled together. Just when he thought he had gotten himself comfortable on top, he awakened to find himself crushed to the very bottom. And that is the end of the story. And this time you can't say, "No, it's not, I see more pages," because you can't see that there are more pages, but there is more to the story. So I will continue reading. Lyle's restlessness so annoyed the other crocodiles that they got off and stomped off in a huff. Lyle was happier during the day when visitors came. He amused everyone with his usual tricks, and before long he was the biggest attraction at the zoo. I guess that's something. Joshua and Mrs. Prim visited regularly, arms laden with games and toys and the Turkish caviar that Lyle loved so much. So laden means like to be carrying a lot, to have a heavy load, and caviar is very fancy fish eggs that cost lots of money, is my understanding. Mrs. Prim did her best to smile and to appear cheerful, but just couldn't hide her concern. "Are you feeling all right, dear?" she would ask. "Are you getting enough rest? Are you making friends with the other crocodiles? Do the lions keep you awake at night? Do the flies pester you?" Lyle shook his head yes or no, depending on the question. He tried putting on a brave front. He tried to look like he wasn't upset. But Mrs. Prim knew very well he was unhappy and fought back her tears. One night, a new zookeeper appeared at Lyle's cage. Surprise, surprise! The new zookeeper turned out to be none other than Hector P. Valenti, star of stage and scream. "Shh," whispered Signor Valenti. "I have come to rescue you." Signor Valenti unlocked the door of the cage, and an astonished Lyle was set free. "You can't go home," said Signor Valenti when they had the zoo behind them. Signor Valenti was bursting with ideas. "We'll put our old act together again," he said. "We'll fly to Australia. They love us in Australia." Lyle groaned. I wonder what a crocodile groan sounds like. The very thought of never seeing the house on East 88th Street again was grim indeed, and too much for him to endure. Signor Valenti read his thoughts and decided Lyle should have one last look at the house on East 88th Street. Approaching the now sleeping street, they were suddenly met with a wall of dense smoke. The smoke, they realized with horror, was coming from Mr. Grump's house. While Signor Valenti ran to signal the alarm, Lyle broke into the house and rescued the still sleeping occupants. And I just wanted to focus on that. Look how brave Lyle is being. There's smoke and it looks like maybe even fire all over. And he is just being such a macho crocodile. He's going to save everybody. Let's see what happens. A gasping, frightened Mr. Grumps and his cat were led to safety on the street. Now the Prims and the entire neighborhood were awake and witness to Lyle's heroism. Mr. Grumps couldn't thank him enough. "Ladies and gentlemen," said Mr. Grumps to the crowd of onlookers, "Lyle is the bravest, kindest, most wonderful crocodile in the whole world. I would consider it a privilege and a pleasure to have him as our neighbor once more." "Hooray!" shouted the Prims. "Hooray!" shouted the crowd. Oh my goodness. Lyle moved back to the house on East 88th Street that very night. Several days later, a farewell party was given by the Prims for Senor Valente, who was leaving to seek fortune and adventures in Australia. "Remember," said Mr. Grumps, speaking to Senor Valente, "should you change your mind about leaving, a job in my store will always be yours, just for the asking. We need people with your kind of talent and ability." Everyone smiled happily. Even Loretta, which is a relief to me because I was worried, is that cat ever going to get along with Lyle, the misunderstood crocodile? So I've enjoyed this book. I think it's a lovely old book. Um, I would love to hear some suggestions about what you guys would like me to read. I think I'll set up a way for us to work on that. And I hope you guys, again, are well and safe and happy, and take care of yourselves. I will be seeing you soon in this virtual format or maybe in a meeting sometime. But take care. Bye, guys.